Everything that happened in Vinland Saga Season 1 summarized. Alright, so Vinland Saga starts off with these two absolute monsters right here, straight up massacring a whole ass army on their own. But one of the Vikings, a man named Thorkel, is daydreaming about his wife and newborn daughter. What's mad disrespectful, this man is still catching multiple bodies even though he's daydreaming right now. Man is not even focused, but he's still killing everybody. While he's in the middle of his fighting though, he falls into a water with one of the soldiers. He kills the guy, but then he drops his sword and swims away. Thor heads away from the battlefield with no intention of going back. We cut to a couple of years later where we see this guy named Leif telling stories to a bunch of kids. Leif tells the children a story about how he was trapped at sea looking for land. He found the land, a completely undiscovered area full of grass and trees, so he named the place Vinland. One of the children, Thorfinn, Thor's son, is especially interested in the story. At that moment, Thor walks in and he sends all the children to go home. The next day, Thor is clearing snow off the roof of their house with his daughter, Hilva. Hilva slips and falls, but something breaks her fall. She begins to dig through the snow, and she found someone who passed out in the snow and has a chain around his neck. Thor takes the man inside and manages to save his life. Meanwhile, at the harbor, a man named Halfdan has come to retrieve the man, claiming that the man is his slave. Instead of simply handing the slave over to him, instead, Thor buys the slave from him because he wants to give the slave a peaceful death. Halfdan agrees and leaves them alone, and the slave man dies. A while later, some more mystery men have showed up. This time, it's a famous group of Vikings known as the Vikings, and they have come here for Thor's specifically. The leader of the Vikings, Loki, tells Thor that a war is starting, and they want to recruit Thor to fight for them. Thor doesn't want to, but after Loki threatens him, Thor has to agree in order to protect the people of the village. But Loki goes behind Thor's back and recruits a mercenary named Askeladd to assassinate Thor. Leif and a couple of the men in the village who are fighting the war head out. A little while after they leave, Thorfinn suddenly bursts out of a barrel, revealing that he had hid there the night before. Having no other choice since they can't go back, Thor has to take the group are headed towards a town, but Leif and Thor can tell that something's not right. A bunch of Askeladd men who are hiding on top of hills throw a bunch of rubble down to stop their path. Then Askeladd himself shows up. Thor arms Thorfinn with a knife, saying that it's only for self-defense. Askeladd's right-hand man, Bjorn, eats a weird-ass mushroom which causes him to pretty much go berserk and attack everything, even his own guys. He then rushes at Thor, but Thor takes him out pretty easily. Askeladd challenges Thor to a one-on-one duel, and Thor agrees. As the duel begins, Askeladd originally has the advantage, but Thor starts to overpower him. Thor beats Askeladd, then Bjorn wakes up and takes Thorfinn hostage. Thor surrenders so they'll let Thorfinn go. Thor is then shot by a bunch of arrows, and Thor dies. Thorfinn, enraged that Askeladd didn't follow the rules of a duel, goes after Askeladd, swearing that he'll kill him one day. Unfortunately, Thorfinn didn't really think of a way back, so now he's stuck with Askeladd's soldiers. Askeladd and his soldiers stop somewhere, then proceed to attack and massacre a whole village of people who were just minding their own business. The next day, Thorfinn shows up at their camp and challenges Askeladd to a duel. As you would expect, he loses horribly. A couple of days later, as Askeladd and his men are leaving, Thorfinn challenges Askeladd to another duel, but this time around he does a lot better due to the training he did in having to survive in the forest. Thorfinn continues to follow Askeladd and his soldiers, saying that one day he will be strong enough to kill Askeladd. Because he sticks with Askeladd and his soldiers, because he wants to get strong enough to kill Askeladd, Thorfinn goes through hundreds of battlefields, getting stronger each time. It was on one of these battlefields that he developed his dual dagger fighting technique. One day, Askeladd and his soldiers come across a fortress that's being attacked. The attackers can't get into the fortress, so they have to retreat. Askeladd tells Thorfinn to go down and make a deal with the commander of the attackers. Askeladd tells Thorfinn to retrieve the head of one of the enemy generals, and in exchange, he'll accept another one of Thorfinn's duels. Thorfinn goes down and makes the deal as Askeladd told him to. The attacking force has another go at the fortress, but this time Askeladd's soldiers are also attacking from the sea. Askeladd and his soldiers reach the shore of the fortress. Meanwhile, Thorfinn is going on a whole ass killing spree in order to get the head of the enemy general. Askeladd and his soldiers get to the shore and they massacre every freaking soldier they see. And instead of waiting to receive their payment from the leader of the attackers, they proceed to steal every single bit of treasure that the fortress had. And Thorfinn delivers to Askeladd, the head of the fortress's commander. Since they got a good haul of treasure, Askeladd and his boys decide to head home. While they're at their little base, Thorfinn decides to cash in that request and challenges Askeladd to a duel. Thorfinn does pretty well against Askeladd.
Listen to your damned elders!
But then Askeladd starts to insult Thor's, which aggravates Thorfinn, causing him to lose. A while after that, Askeladd and his soldiers head over to the London Bridge, where they want to take down an immensely strong Viking called Thorkel the Tall, who is also the same guy who was with Thor's in the beginning. Askeladd wants to do this so he can enter a friendly relationship with the King of Danes. Meanwhile, Thorkel, the absolute monster he is throwing logs as fucking spears, completely wrecking all the ships in their area. Askeladd sends Thorfinn to take down Thorkel. Although Thorfinn is able to put up a pretty good fight against him, he gets pretty much destroyed by Thorkel.
It's not over yet! Here we go! I knew his chances were slim.
When Askeladd sees that Thorfinn's lost, he orders his soldiers to retreat. Thorfinn slices off Thorkel's fingers in order to get away. Because Thorfinn gave him such a good fight, Thorkel asks Thorfinn for his name.
The son of Thor's. Thorfinn.
The son of Thor's?
Thorfinn jumps into the water and swims away, and later, all of the forces from the Danian army retreat as well. Even though Thorkel's soldiers are happy about this, Thorkel himself is enraged that they would actually dare to leave him there without a fight. Thorfinn manages to join back with Askeladd's group later, and Askeladd actually managed to get an alliance with the King of Danes. Thorkel throws rocks at a bunch of soldiers who are camped around his area, trying to get them to attack him. And while some of the soldiers do want to fight back, the leader of the forces, Ragnar, tells them not to, since Ragnar's main job is to protect the prince. When Thorkel learns that the prince is there, he gets excited, realizing that if he kidnaps the prince, then the King of Danes will have to send his forces after him. So Thorkel orders his soldiers to attack. And they completely wipe out a force of soldiers which is many times larger than their own. And Thorkel kidnaps the prince in the process.
I found you!
When Askeladd hears of what happened, instead of following orders, he kills the messenger, then decides that they'll go kidnap the prince themselves. While Thorkel and his soldiers are on the move, they suddenly encounter a small group of survivors from the massacre and some other soldiers who were stationed around the area, who have teamed up to try and rescue the prince. Thorkel simply lets the prince go, then he attacks the forces, since all Thorkel wants to do is really just fight. Askeladd lights the forest on fire in order to cause a distraction. While everything is on fire and soldiers from both sides are disoriented, Askeladd sends Thorfinn in to get the prince. Thorfinn finds the prince, but before he can get to massacring any of the soldiers, Thorkel shows up, and this is where he tells Thorfinn that he knew Thorfinn's mother, Hilda, but because of the fire, Thorfinn is forced to retreat. Thorfinn successfully delivers the prince to Askeladd. Askeladd and his soldiers keep up a tight schedule of marching and resting in order to keep the prince safe. Eventually, they encounter two people who Askeladd actually called for in order to bring a boat to deliver them across the river. Because Askeladd's forces have now crossed the river, Thorkel is unable to chase after them. Since they have a little bit of time to rest, Askeladd appoints Thorfinn as the prince's personal guard. And let's just say Thorfinn doesn't really like the idea. While Askeladd and his soldiers continue their marching, they're suddenly surrounded and shot at by a bunch of archers. Thorfinn picks up his shield, ready to fight. Hope you guys enjoyed this video, and I apologize for having to split it into 2 parts. I want to try and avoid doing this if I ever can, but some anime just have really long seasons, so I might have to resort to this. Anyway, I hope you have a nice day, and that's all.